Take a listen.
Look, I look at the presidency as a very big job, and nobody will get it right every time. And I won't either. But I promise you this: I won't traffic in fear and division. I won't fan the flames of hate. I'll seek to heal the racial wounds that have long plagued our country, not use them for political gain. I'll do my job and I will take responsibility. I won't blame others.
Joined now by Symone Sanders, Senior Advisor to the Biden campaign. Symone, good to have you. Thanks for your time. Let's start with the timing. We've been in the midst of this now for 6 or 7 days. Why now? Why the speech from Mr. Biden this morning?
Look, Vice President Biden said in his speech that the nation was really calling out for leadership, and that's what he provided this morning. His speech was empathetic, it was serious, it was resolute. It's not just the last 7 days, we would argue, Craig. It is the last couple of months. We now know the name of George Floyd, but we also know Breonna Taylor. We know Ahmaud Arbery. This is a nation that has been gripped by a public health crisis and an economic crisis. When 40 million people have lost their jobs and have filed for unemployment, more than 100,000 deaths due to the coronavirus pandemic. And many of those deaths and jobs losses are disproportionately concentrated in the African-American and Latino communities. So these are really compounding issues that Vice President Biden spoke to today. And we think he was very clear in calling it out. He filled the void of leadership again in this moment. He rose to the occasion when President Trump, frankly, did not. And lastly, he called for action. And he referred to that action as a down payment on justice, frankly, that is long overdue, a down payment on ensuring equal protection under the law for all. And he called for Congress, when they come back, to immediately pass Congressman Hakeem Jeffries' chokehold bill. But also, there are other things we can do. We all saw the videos yesterday. I live in Washington, D.C. I watched as peaceful protesters were dispersed with tear gas and pelted with what it looked to be rubber bullets. Also, Donald Trump could go get a photo op. There are weapons of war on our streets in America, and Joe Biden is saying that there are measures that that Congress can also take up in removing and stop transferring weapons of war to police departments. So there's a lot that can be done. And as Vice President Biden said this morning, it is the work that won't be immediately finished, not in the 100 days of his presidency. It's going to take a generation, but we can start to act right now. We must. We have to.
Well, while we were having this conversation, for our viewers at home, we should sort of explain what they were looking at. And for our listeners on Sirius Satellite Radio, I'll try and describe it. And if the control room could cue it back up, we'll show it one more time. Because on the left side of the screen there, you had Vice President Biden at Wilmington AME Church in Delaware yesterday. And then the image, of course, of President Trump several hours later in front of St. John's Church, right across the street from the White House, holding the Bible there. Mr. Biden addressed this image that you just talked about. Symone, he addressed it in that same speech. Let's listen to what he said.
When peaceful protesters dispersed in order for a president from the doorstep of the people's house, the White House, using tear gas and flash grenades in order to stage a photo op in one of the most historic churches in the country, or at least in Washington, D.C. We can be forgiven for believing the president is more interested in power than in principle, more interested in serving the passions of his base than the needs of the people in his care. For that's what the presidency is, the duty to care for all of us. Not just those who vote for us, but all of us.
Symone, we just had the mayor of Washington, D.C.'s news conference on a few minutes ago. I'm not sure if you heard what Muriel Bowser had to say about it. You lived in D.C. for a number of years. I lived in D.C. for a number of years. There's been talk of D.C. statehood since long before we were both born. If Joe Biden is elected president, how much of a priority is that going to be for Biden administration, securing statehood for Washington, D.C.?
Well, look, I think Mayor Bowser, we believe she's done an amazing job leading the helm of this city, especially through this public health crisis, economic crisis, and now the unrest. That call that happened yesterday with President Trump and the governors, I listened to it as the audio was then leaked. And I don't believe Mayor Bowser was on that call, but it was in her city that the president decided that protesters were peaceful protesters were dispersed. It was her city where people were tear gassed and pelted, all so that Donald Trump could go and get a photo op. And so, look, we support and stand with Mayor Bowser and her leadership. And when and if Joe Biden is elected president, he looks forward to working with her. But I want to go back to you showed the image of yesterday of Vice President Biden in the church. And after the church, he convened some major mayors across the country for a roundtable conversation. He got a briefing and an update, but to also talk about what the federal government should be doing right now, what kind of partner he would be in the White House for these mayors. These mayors are on the front lines of what's happening in this country. And the reality is the current president of the United States has just failed to exhibit any of this leadership. We had Mayor Melvin Carter from St. Paul, Mayor Lori Lightfoot from Chicago, Mayor Eric Garcetti of Los Angeles, and Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms of Atlanta. Mayor Carter spoke specifically about these compounding things that are happening as it relates to the pandemic. And in the latest reiteration of the CARES Act, St. Paul is a city of 300,000. They were not eligible for the funds, as it was cities of 500,000 or more. So there are real things and real issues that are happening across this country that are contributing to the unrest. And these mayors, Mayor Bowser included, need a partner in the White House, not an antagonist, not someone who's going to continue to fan the flames of unrest, chaos, and white supremacy in this country.
Symone Sanders, Senior Advisor to the Biden campaign. Symone, thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Chris.
We are going to take a quick